deities that we worshipped in picture form as we were just very new devotees. Now we are old new devotees, but we are new devotees. It was the pictures of Shri Radha Damodar. And we've been coming to Gita Nagari following Maharaj since 2001. So 24 years, except missed one in between. And we're staying in the very place that we first stayed in 2001. So it's a very sweet experience. Of course, the place looks quite different from what it was. During Vyasa Puja of Maharaj this year, he took the time to emphasize that he is very interested in making sure that the legacy of Prabhupada continues much further, as he said, beyond the time of, I guess, his generation. And the legacy to continue has to do a lot with a little bit of what he said. It has to do everything what he said, a little bit in the connection between what I'm saying I, because I had a partner who ditched me in the last minute. And so now that partner, instead of being with me, decided to be a director who will suddenly say, action, cut. That somebody decided to take. Yeah, thank you. The culture has a lot to do with, or the legacy has a lot to do with the culture of being a Vaishnava. And the culture of being a Vaishnava goes far beyond 2 vertical lines on the forehead, a fancy, ordinary, colorful, embroidered bead bag around the neck, or a certain silk kurta from the holiest of places called Loi Bazaar, or dhotis with colorful borders that match the kurta, the saris, the gopi skirts. Beyond all of that is the culture of a Vaishnava that is very sacred, personal to each one of us. And that culture is on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas particularly, Srimad Bhagavatam plays such an important role. So it is but natural, Maharaj being a genius teacher, in addition to being a wonderful Vaishnava himself, the geniusness in his ability to teach is not just by telling us, okay, the next thing I'm going to teach you is this, but just as a natural flow from asking that in Vyasa Puja, he wants to see the legacy go further. The next natural step is to get together and appreciate the relevance, the beauty, the depth, the joy, the vastness, and the specificity of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very, very important scripture for all of us. In fact, it's such an important scripture that all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas only referred to the Srimad Bhagavatam and did not necessarily write their own bhashya on it. It is such an important scripture for us. And the personality who appears as the teacher for the universe, Sri Vyasadeva, gave us the Srimad Bhagavatam with the intention that this is meant for people in Kali Yuga. So we don't have to look to our neighbors, whether they are people from Kali Yuga. We are here, we're already people of Kali Yuga, without a doubt. If you have a doubt, the symptoms are there, and we'll see how wonderful match it is. It's part of a profiling that Vyasadeva has already done. And we match that in different flavors of it, but we match that perfectly. So it's an appreciation from Maharaj as to what a lovely excellent teacher that he is. Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very vast. 18,000 verses, and within each verse, so much is packed. It's impossible for any two, but even more impossible for anyone to speak about anything and everything in Bhagavatam. So today we decided we'll take one verse and just appreciate that verse from different angles. Something that we would like to offer to you is, sometimes we feel like, there is a need or a urgency to get through the scripture quickly and say, I've done this or I've accomplished this. While that is sweet that we complete studying of the book, it's on a day-to-day basis, it's important to pick a favorite verse. And favorites can change over time, but for a certain period of time, pick a verse and just stay with that verse. Morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime, moving here and there. Just let that verse nicely percolate into our being. The sweetness of it, the context of it, the application of it in different ways, the words, let it, I guess, for lack of a better term, dance in our being. And the relish is something that's, I can't explain. It's a matter of an experience for each one of us. We picked this verse that I'm going to show you because that's been a verse that in the past few years has come to our aid. Like any being in Kali Yuga, we've had our share of difficulties, some small, some medium, some large, some extra large, and a few double XL difficulties. In some cases, we were able to, I guess, come out of them alive. In some cases, we got crushed severely. We lost our bearings. In some cases, we tried to figure out what hit us. Yet, among many, many verses, this one verse is a anchor for us. So that's what we want to share with you. I'm going to go through a list of do's and don'ts. Less focus on the don'ts because we hear enough of don'ts, right? In the Hare Krishna movement, we hear enough of don'ts. We'll try and change that angle a little bit and hear a little bit more of the do's. And there is not that this verse can be studied only this way. We are not the professors of this verse. Lord Brahma is. It's just a way of looking at this verse, and I'm sure each one of us can find your own way or your own ways of appreciating this verse. But for today, we're calling it a survival guide for managing difficulties. I had not, previously we had not intended to use the word survival guide. This was something we had worked on at least 2 or 3 years ago. But in preparation for Gita Nagari, we also stumbled upon Braj Bihari Prabhu from the Potomac area, who, in reference to this verse, indicates to page 91 of Nectar of Devotion. And the sentence there, Prabhupada writes that this particular verse is a guide for every devotee. So a guide means is something that you take along and you find your way. So hopefully we'll get there. And before we get there, we invoke the blessings of the Acharyas, specifically the 4 personalities that we heard today. So please recite along. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashthaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The first being in creation. I'm not going to go into the past time because my clock's already ticking. Speaks these profound words of realization to his deity, Lord Shri Krishna, standing in front of him. So, in the interest of time, let's recite this together. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagvapurbhir vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadayabhat. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagvapurbhir vidadan namaste jivtipade sadayabhat. One more time. Tate nukampam susamikshamano Bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagvapurbhir vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadayabhat. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Every word is packed. I'm going to move a little fast because first I thought, wow, how much can I speak in an hour? And now I'm thinking, how am I going to fit this in an hour? And not even an hour. We started late, so we might end on time because I don't want to take Shatarupa's time away. I heard this story from His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, who was speaking in a class. So there was a family of fish that was swimming. I want to say in water, but fish only swim in water. They were swimming. There was a papa fish, not papa fish, but papa fish, mama fish, little children fish, happily swimming, eating worms, going to the fish mall and buying things and building a little fish house, and just having a wonderful time. And the fish are swimming about a foot below the surface of water, happily going about. From the sky, this big, massive eagle swoops down and there's a skirmish in the water, and one of the fish is grabbed and the eagle flies away. Although the fish are right under the surface of the water, the fish may be thinking, we are safe. However, the fish had no idea that unbeknownst to them, from somewhere, this eagle will come and take away one of their members. Similarly, difficulties are like this big eagle, and they don't give us an advance notice. Oh, guess what? In few days, I'll be there. See you. Sometimes Parikshit Maharaj was given a little notice. Some of us might get a little notice here and there, and the body tells us some things. That's an indication that something may, but most of the time there's so much din and noise around that one may not hear, but not always. There's no rule that difficulties have to come with some nice announcement or notice ahead of time. They come immediately. Or whenever they come, it's immediate. So what is a devotee meant to do? Now one may say, devotees have no suffering. You agree with the statement? Yeah. So for no if difficulties do come, what is our guide in such times? This is one of those verses. So, as I said, we're going to go through some do's and don'ts, mostly focus on the do's just for the sake of time. Although this is a Vaishnava assembly, there used to be a devotee by the name Bhakta Calvin, and is sitting there in his home, and his mother, Mata Devi Dasi, tells him, Calvin, will you gather the trash, please? And Bhakta Calvin shouts back, gather the trash? What am I, your personal slave? Why can't you do it? And the mother says, fine, I will. And you can start washing your own clothes and fixing your own meals and picking up your own toys and making your own bed and cleaning up your own messes day after day. And Bhakta Calvin had a lightning bolt of realization. Some women were just not meant to be mothers. I'm glad we laughed because we're all Bhakta Calvins in one way. I can't say all, most. The two words that are there are srishti and drishti. Drishti means vision, perspective. Srishti, what's in front of us, the manifestation of creation, the circumstance that's in front of us. What does Srishti look like? All depends upon the drishti of the person. And the whole idea of coming to Krishna consciousness is under the guidance of Guru and Sadhus and Shastra, that our drishti is incrementally molded to be in alignment with how scriptures want to see it. So we call it Shastra Chakshusha or Shastra Chakshu. If not Shastra Chakshu, then we are looking at the world with some perspective. Here's a nice story I'd heard many years ago. There was a sage who had not eaten for many, many, many days. So he was hungry. Naturally, he was hungry. So after many days, somehow, as he was walking along the path, one villager took pity on him and gave him one dry chapati. He said, oh, in all these days, Krishna has given me one dry chapati. That's okay. He came down, sat at the base of a tree, kept the chapati on the floor, closed his eyes to say, Maha Prasade Govinde. When he opened his eyes, the dry chapati was gone. What would you do? What would I do? So he looked around and a stray dog was eating that chapati. What would a person's reaction be? Let's ask honestly. Honestly, if you had not eaten, and I'm putting you on the spot because if you ask me the question, I already know the answer. I would have hit the dog with a stone. But anyway, if you were there, what would you have done? You would become angry. Chase the dog. Throw a stone on the dog. Cry? What'd you say? Ask the dog. Ask the householder to give one more chapati. Very good. If they had two, they would have given two. No, they only gave one. Anyway, this great sage closed his eyes and said, "Thank you, Krishna, for making me the instrument to bring the dry chapati for the dog." Drishti, just perspective of life. And Lord Brahma, so all of this is from this verse that we recited, okay? I don't have so much time to go word by word to show you, but it is it's there. It's just extracted from it. No, the organizers have to approve. You can't just donate time like that. So it was a suggested donation? Okay, we'll see. I'll look at the audience. If I can see their iris, I'll continue. If I see their eyelids, I will stop. So Srishti and Drishti is very, very important, that as soon as we are in any circumstance of life, rather than point to why is this circumstance this way, I wish it were that way, it could have, it should have, it must have, I wish, a devotee or a student of the Bhagavatam has to look at their own, what vision am I looking at it? With what perspective am I looking at the situation? And the perspective generally has to do with identity. For example, let's say there is a difficulty. If I look at that situation through the perspective of a husband, I have a certain view of the situation. If I look at it from the perspective of a father, I have a certain perspective of it. If I look at it as a man would look at it, I have a certain view of it. Bhagavatam wants us to see it from the perspective of a Krishna Dasa. What does a servant look at? How does the servant see the circumstance? Now, this is not something forced. I can't just suddenly say, how does a servant see it? For me to even ask that question, I have to first consider that I am a servant. So in that sense, it is what Rupa Goswami tells us, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. That cultivation must be there. In small things, we start seeing the world as a servant, so that as practice, we see big circumstances as a servant would see it. Remember this sage who said, "Thank you, Krishna, for making me an instrument to bring this poor dog the chapati." That's a servant's perspective of the circumstance. And the perspective is built by, since we are in the place of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, we'll quote Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's an example or a question that he would ask. If you take an orange and you squeeze it, what would you get? Orange juice. Would you get strawberry juice? No. Mango juice? No. Because for an orange, what's inside is what's going to come when it is squeezed. So for that, similarly, for a devotee, he would say, if life squeezes the devotee, or for that matter, anyone, when they're squeezed, what will come out? What's inside? So for each one of us, the daily consideration is, what am I putting inside? What am I cultivating inside? It's not, like I said, it's not the vertical tilak, the kurta, the dhotis and the bead bags and the externalities of it. It's what's inside as a Vaishnava. And that's our cultivation. And I'm no one to judge what's inside, because I know what's for me, what's inside. I also know that when life squeezes me, what all comes out of it. But it's a practice, a culture. That's each one of our responsibility. Our dear friend, time. Lord Brahma. Let's go back to Srishti and Drishti. Here's an example from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharma the bull was just minding his own business. The personification of Kali had a club in his hand and he broke 3 legs of this Dharma, the bull. Parikshit Maharaj, who's the keeper or the protector of Dharma, comes to that situation and asks Dharma, who did this? How easy is it for Dharma to say, there is the perpetrator? What did Dharma answer? What did Dharma say? I don't know. I'm sorry, what do you say? Destiny. He said, I don't know. Destiny, time. There's so many factors that the Supreme is known by. I don't know. Even Avanti Brahmana, he was insulted like anything. They urinated in his begging bowl. They would spit on him. They would throw stones at him. And when he considered, who am I to blame? I can't blame anyone. That drishti perhaps a little high, but still that's a drishti to see the world with the perspective of not out there that the problem is in the srishti, but the problem is in the drishti. One of the first verses anybody recites in the day is Om Agyana Timira Andhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Because the Guru's main job or purpose is to refine our drishti. Time. The wheel of time. In this case, the spiral of time. I was sharing earlier this morning with Yamuna Jivana Prabhu that time is the platter on which Krishna serves our karma for us. And like any parent tells us, eat your vegetables, it's good for you. And if we don't like it, if we don't eat it, it will come back to us anyway. Because karma, when experienced, is burnt. And I want to make a point here. I don't want to spend too much time on karma. Just in case a question does come up, that how is it possible we hear that karma at the time of initiation is burnt away? That is true. By definition, our acharyas also say that one who is performing uttama bhakti, for them, prarabdha and aprarabdha karma is driven away. The question to ask ourselves is, am I performing uttama bhakti? Am I in the place of nishtha? Up until that time, we heard Maharaj speaking. It was such a wonderful segue for me. Is speaking that Nashta Parayeshu Abhadreshu. It takes time. There are Abhadras. So it all depends on the amount of submission the disciple has at the time of initiation and from there on. Up until then, is served on the nice platter called time, and it comes one after the other, one after the other. Now, when thus things happen, such difficulties do come, there are two possible responses. One is the don't. So, from the don't side, the idea is not to avert it or ignore it, but it is to acknowledge it. Yes, life right now is difficult. Versus perhaps an apathy to the problem. It's so terrible. Yeah, so horrendous that I'm having difficulty after difficulty. And when difficulties do come, human beings generally ask a question. What is that question? Yeah, why? Why? Krishna answers all questions except this one question. Why? To teach us that it's not a question that is meant to be asked. The reason our why cannot be answered is our frame of experience is bounded by birth and by the time before the next birth, death. Within this, we can see to some degree. What lies outside of those boundaries? So someone might say, well, if I was told, I might feel better. So I want all of us to ask ourselves, do we really want to know all the things we did in our previous lives? I don't think so. Huh? Okay. But it's not just one previous life. The one before that. The one before that. And there is intentionally where there is memory taken away. I mean, I usually joke about this, especially in universities. I say, if I knew that in my previous life I was a cockroach, as soon as someone turns the light on in the room, I will run. We don't want. It is an act of mercy that we don't have an entire list. Some things somebody will tell us, an astrologer might tell us, in your previous life. And we find, okay. And it is, to some degree, you're right, Prabhu. It gives us some solace or meaning to, okay, I understand. And this is what Lord Brahma is also saying. That Atma Kritam, I tend to accept, because time brings things, I tend to accept that, oh, but to know everything that I did is very overwhelming. And how it will manifest in this life will be even more overwhelming to know the effect of it. Atma Kritam, then he says Vipakam. Vipakam means ripening. You see the color from here is a raw tomato, a tomatia that ripens into a tomato. So reactions from past activities, they ripen with time. A devotee's consideration at this time to do is, like Lord Brahma says, Bhunjana. Bhunjana. What is the meaning of Bhunjana? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in chapter 3, Bhunjate te tvagham papam. Bhunjate? Eating. They are eating or relishing or enjoying. Here he is saying, Bhunjana eva atmakritam. Bhunjana, Prabhupada translated as enduring. Because a person cannot do anything but endure, which does not mean passivity, by the way. So passivity would mean I do nothing. I am just on a conveyor belt and life happens. No, enduring means, I'll give an example because it's, I'm sure, relevant to all of us. Enduring means while conducting the activities of life, one is aware and one bears it. For example, except a few, most of us here are married. Correct? I can see in the faces, I can tell. And as a mother or a father or a husband or wife, one may have toothache, something, headache, back pain, some ailment, something. But we go about doing the duties of our householder life because that's what we are meant to do. At that time, what we are going through is what's called enduring. We don't say, of course, unless we are fully sick, we don't say, oh, guess what? Today I don't feel like, I'm not going to. Some days may be like that, but generally we endure whatever is there because we have a higher order duty to perform. We're not unaware of it, nor we neglect, but we continue our duty. So that is called enduring. So Lord Brahma is saying, Bhunjana, but he doesn't blame the circumstance. Atmakritam. This is something I have done previously. Vipakam. And now it has nicely fructified for me. And the way, one example of this is the example of, let's say, Draupadi Devi. She has 5 sons. They are minors. They cannot fight a war. A Brahmana's son, Ashwatthama, comes in the middle of the night and chops off the heads of these little boys. I mean, how can I even... It's hard to describe that incident. So in anger, Arjuna captures Ashwatthama, brings him in front of Draupadi, who is holding the jata of Ashwatthama, and with one hand, a sword raised, ready to chop off Ashwatthama's head. He turns to Krishna. Krishna says, there's nothing wrong if you did it. Maya is such a trickster. No? There's nothing wrong if you did it. But he didn't say do it. He doesn't say don't do it. He says it won't be wrong if you did it. If our prayers are to Krishna in such a way, our usual prayer is, tell me clearly what to do, Krishna. I will just do it. Right? We've prayed like that. Give me very clear. Lift your right hand. Hold this in your pinky. This left hand. Stand this way. Yes, Krishna, give me specifically what I should do. Because I don't want to think, because I can't think how to do this situation. And Krishna to all the people tells Arjuna, it won't be wrong if you did anything. But Draupadi is very clear. Muchatam, muchatam. Let him, release him. The release him is, I don't want his mother to experience what I'm experiencing. Because she knows the pain of something that has just fructified for her, why would someone else feel it? I know how it feels. She doesn't necessarily hold Ashwatthama guilty, although he is, but she doesn't hold him. And Lord Brahma says, Tat te anukampam susamikshamana. A beautiful word. Ikshamana means to look at. Samikshamana is to anticipate or to examine. Susamikshamana means to wait happily and eagerly. The word is su, eagerly waiting. In the fast-paced world, we want grace to come quickly. Chop chop. Krishna, I chanted 2 extra rounds. When? Quickly. I want grace very quickly. But when difficulties do come, it's important to evoke that grace. And evoking that grace is, here what is Brahma doing? He's speaking to his deity. So we speak to our deity. If you have whoever is your Ishtadeva, speak to them. Speak to the devotees of how to feel the grace of the Lord. The grace of the Lord is in the company of the devotees. And it doesn't have to be 500. It can be 1, 2, a few. A good barometer is to ask ourselves, in my life, do I have at least one devotee that I consider my true well-wisher, that I can speak openly without feeling judged? If I don't have that, something we need to work on. To evoke grace, Uttara. I'm just giving the example of Uttara. There are so many examples, but Uttara. Pregnant lady. Suddenly she realized that her fetus is going to get fried by a Brahmastra. Because Ashwatthama had released the Brahmastra saying, Apandavasyat, let there be no Pandava at all. At that time, Uttara comes running to Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho. Bhaktanam Abhayankara. What to do? Yatra Mrityu Parasparam. Wherever I look, I can see only death at this situation. Then do not is what, in my experience of being a devotee and seeing many, is to deal with it by oneself. Never deal with difficulties alone. It is never meant to be done that way. In fact, the reason this verse is spoken, or I'm sharing this verse, not why Brahma spoke, is difficulties are one way for us to see as a prompt to go to the devotees. They're a prompt, they nudge us. Please, be with the devotees. Share with the devotees. It is meant to create a sense of camaraderie with the devotees. And that in the company of devotees we experience grace. And it doesn't have to be there's someone that you have affection for and they have affection for you. And if you don't have one, build one, create one, establish one. Something we call coping strategies, because Lord Brahma says, Jiveta, continue living. One has to live. One has life coming at them. While the difficulty is there, does life say, all right, I'm going to give you a break, deal with the difficulty, come back 2 weeks later? No. Children are hungry, something happens next day, the boss is saying, where's the deadline, where's the project going on? Something, with the bills have to be paid, something else has to be taken care of, the faucet is leaking, the humidifier is not working, something. Things are being thrown at you non-stop. Life doesn't say, take a break, we'll deal with it later. No. So there's something called coping strategies. Now, in the world, people deploy very, very debilitating strategies to cope with things. What's the famous one? Not so famous. Alcohol. Something that's numbing. Maybe he's the Hare Krishna, so everything is on a Maha scale for her. Alcohol. Instagram. Something numbing. Just getting lost into, and I've had my share of numbing, just because it's too much to deal with it. It's just, sometimes it's just easy to just numb the mind, because I need some oxygen and I need to just forget about the problems I'm dealing with. So whatever, if each one of us has our own very specially crafted numbing agent, we're very familiar with it. But the problem is right here. All I've done is look there. I'm sorry, problem is there, I have to look for it. But the idea is to be able to look at the problem and find strategies to work. And then the do side, of course, by the way, we've been together for 34 years. So we have for a sense of affection and liberty that we say things to each other like this, but it's all in lovely jest and affection, nothing like that. I said it publicly, okay? Yeah. A coping strategy is that gives us strength, not that makes us weak. Now, for each one of us, we find whatever that is. For some, as soon as the difficulty appears, they somehow are drawn to their japamala, and I have great respect for them. Some will be drawn to a calming, soothing kirtan. Wonderful. Some are drawn to prasadam. Yeah. Whatever. There are so many I'm making light of it, but there are so many aspects of bhakti. Some find strength in Bhagavatam. I know I have sources that of such literature that I find great strength in. As soon as difficulty comes, for me, that's my go-to. So for each one of us, we need to find what that is and relish it and make that our strength-giving strategy or coping strategy. And it's important that during that time or those times of difficulty that we do what is right, not what feels right or what looks right, but what is right. Now, this is not easy. It's like Maharaj said, it's a glib statement. You can just say easier said than done. But is it impossible? No. Is it difficult? Yes. Life is anyway difficult. So we can't say that this is difficult. We are anyway dealing with difficult situations. But this is what makes life strong. It makes us able to look at the problem and acknowledge it and learn to move through life as a devotee. Problems come right here. And Lord Brahma says, Jiveta yaha. Now, Jiveta yaha is for us to continue living. It's important sometimes, or whenever big difficulties do come, to step back and consider the big picture of life. It's very easy to get lost in the circumstance in that moment. Big picture of life. What is the big picture of life? Who am I? Where am I going? Where would I like to go? Maharaj always has a statement that he keeps, I've heard him repeat many times. Shri Radha Damodar Lalita Vishakha Devi ki jai, Gaur Nitai ki jai. Maharaj reminds in many lectures that don't be focused on the difficulty right now. Ask yourself, where would you like to be when this difficulty has gone away? Where would you like to be? Where would you like to see yourself? Meaning, what are you going to do today such that when the difficulty goes away, what you're left with is strength, not regret. Oh, I wish I had done. Oh, I wish I had done. Not regret, but strength. Long-term view. Pingala. In the 11th canto, Krishna gives Uddhava the example, it says Yadu speaking to, Dattatreya speaking to Yadu, that's been referred to by Krishna, the example of a prostitute. Of all the examples that can be given, the example of a prostitute, Pingala. Pingala considered every day, she's sitting, she's at the doorstep of her home, and as men are walking by, she thinks, will he be my customer tonight? Will he satisfy me tonight? Will he give me some gift tonight? That's all she considers. And one day she has this epiphany of all, like, what am I doing? Aho me moha vitatim. I'm just blinded by the immediate who will gratify me. But actually, who is the one who's maintaining me? It's Krishna who's maintaining me. So therefore she says, Aho. It's Krishna who's maintaining. That big picture of life is very, very important to have. What not to do is to have what we call a short-term view. A caterpillar eats leaves, spins a cocoon around itself, and is trapped inside that cocoon for a very long time. And the only reason that it survives is because the caterpillar knows that I want to be a butterfly one day. If the caterpillar loses that side that I want to be a butterfly, it will die. Because the caterpillar has a big perspective of life. We all want to be, like Lord Brahma is saying. What is he saying? That it becomes our birthright, mukti pada. Mukti pada has two meanings, right? One means liberation. Other is the feet of Lord Vishnu. Mukti pade swa daya bhak. It is given. It becomes your birthright. So big perspective, the big context. Who am I? What am I going through life for? It requires person to step back and see it from the perspective of, we say buddhi or buddhi yoga, to use knowledge from scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, to give us this vantage, this big picture. If scripture is not accessible, or we don't access scripture, we can't have this big picture. There are things in this world that give us a big picture, no doubt, but they don't give us the grand big picture. Every day, often, regularly, to do is to introspect, to look within. Every devotee, it's a strengthening practice to ask oneself, what are my strengths? Generally, devotees say, I have no strength. I have no good qualities. Well, it sounds nice. But that's not the reality. Because as long as we say, I have no good qualities, it sounds good. The moment our friend or someone says, you have no good qualities, see how we react. What? Oh, you have some good qualities. It sounds nice, it's decorative. It's important to say, we have strengths, we have certain things that are our strengths, certain qualities, some gift, something Krishna has given each one of us. We are all amshas of Krishna. If we say to Krishna, I have absolutely no good quality, then Krishna will be like, whose part are you? At a very advanced level of humility, one says, I have no good quality. That's in their different platform from which they are speaking. For them, even if someone says, you have no good quality, they'll say, yes, you're right, I agree. If we can say that, accept it. But it's important. At the same time, we also look at what are some things to work on. What are some areas of improvement? Anytime someone comes to Maharaj, initiation, first exercise, take some time, work on what are some areas of improvement. What would you like to work on? So it's very, very important. Parikshit Maharaj, in a moment of, we'll call it indiscretion for the time being, great king, wonderful personality, was hungry and thirsty. It's not like he can't control hunger and thirst, but he was very thirsty. The sage was in meditation. He got irritated, put a snake around his neck and walked away. And as soon as he walked away, what do we hear Maharaj say? He got a aha moment. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That same Parikshit Maharaj sat without eating and drinking for 7+ days, no sleeping, nothing, hearing Bhagavad. Does he have the capacity? Yes. But it was that moment. But it was important for him to look within. Excellent exercise to look within. Hrid Vag Vapurbhi, Lord Brahma says in the verse. Hrid, I'm coming up to that one. It's important to look within our heart. We don't need others to tell us. We know. But we also know what our strengths are. And that's the alignment. Hrid Vag Vapu. Hrid means heart or mind. Vak, speech, and Vapu, body. Our thoughts, our words, and our actions should align. We may say it's Krishna's mercy. The words are there. Sometimes this may not necessarily align with it because it's something we have learned to say, which is also good. Instead of saying nothing, is better. But best is the heart aligns. So the alignment is Utsaha, Nishchaya, Dhairya that Maharaj was reading. Sometimes when we hear the word Utsaha, what picture do we get? Haribol. That's not necessarily Utsaha. Prabhupada's definition of Utsaha in Nectar of Instruction is endeavor executed with intelligence. Is enthusiasm. Executed with intelligence. Intelligence is sharpened by or is awakened by scripture. So if Bhagavatam is not a daily exercise of studying, it's not like how many pages did I study. It's how much did I absorb. Then the alignment is easier. I mean, these are words of Lord Brahma. I mean, who am I to say? And then Lord Brahma says, Vidadan, that Hid Vag Vapu Vidada, one offers one's thoughts, words, and actions to you, Namaste. The one offers their obeisances. Without gratitude, obeisances have no. By the act of obeisance, it shows the spiritual master and Krishna or the devotees, I'm grateful to you for your association, for your presence, for what you are giving me in my life. And anyone who's written to Maharaj has learned that somehow or the other, every day, either in writing or some way, have a practice of expressing that gratitude. I found that previously when I used to start writing, I'm grateful for. The first 2 times would be nice. The third time I would be lost to say what I'm grateful for. It's such a mechanical exercise. But just acknowledging every day how my life is filled with grace is a very joyful exercise actually. It relieves me of the burden that I'm doing something actually. And that's the way the heart becomes soft. When it is soft, it receives, it absorbs a lot more. Wow, thank you. You want to add something? Any questions, thoughts, comments, objections? One second. We want to go on record that you also got a chance to say something. How dare you turn the mic off? Dheeraj.
The one thing I wanted to share was when you were sharing the example of Uttara, what is more important is to understand that she is less than 16 years old because Abhimanyu was 16. So she's really this young girl who is pregnant. She's lost her husband. And actually, her relatives are like the Pandavas. And her mother-in-law is herself a very exalted devotee. She herself comes from a very exalted family. So if you see externally, she had many other options to take shelter. And yet, like, her focus was on Krishna. So I was thinking, as practicing devotees, we have, by Prabhupada's mercy, we have a lot of opulences in our life as a devotee too. But if the attention is, like, if we don't understand that the root or the ultimate protection does come from Krishna, any other shelter we take, it will be incomplete shelter. So therefore, that is the most, she's so young, and yet she, for me, Uttara always stood out to be that example that even though so young, so many, hardships she was going through at that moment, but still she could just stay focused that Krishna is my only shelter, not Arjuna, or Yudhishthir or anybody who are equally capable of giving her protection and shelter. So that was something I wanted to share.
Okay, any thoughts? I didn't see any hands. Oh, Akila Dharapal. Here. There are learned persons in this assembly. Please don't feel shy. I don't know all of you, but it would be a disservice if you didn't speak up and add more color on this side too. Please add some color to the discussion. Yeah, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned in one point that never deal the difficulty alone, but take the help of the devotees. But if I am creating the mess in my own life, so it is very difficult or feel shameful to approach devotees again and again. And I used to go into my own poon, or like, it's how, what steps to take, or how to minimize such things.
Shame has a whole thing to deal with, so I'm not addressing that. But in general, it's a door we have closed with the lock on our side. It's a view of, again, it's a drishti, how we see ourselves. Unless a devotee says, please don't come back to me, right? Up until that time, it's open invitation. But we may have this perception. It's our drishti. Oh, I'm bothering this person. Oh, I've already said this. Oh, I'm ashamed to. But these are our. So, change that drishti. Way back. Is there someone here? Amrita Keli. We'll come there, Prabhu. I have to keep my sponsors happy. They will not invite me again afterwards. I'm teasing, sorry. What is it? You're cutting out the voices of all the women here. This is a brahmachari. This is a brahmachari. If you were married, you would never do something like that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We really can really feel that it's coming from your heart and with a lot of personal realization, not just the scriptural statements. Really touching. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, it's in some ways related to the morning class, but probably would like to hear from you, Prabhu. We have these 5 most important angas of bhakti, and by nature, each of us may be inclined more towards a particular element and not so much for the others. While we understand there is a minimum requirement that we handle that, and naturally, given we have only so much time, the priority goes to those where we are inclined to. There is some kind of, I don't know, dissatisfaction or something that I'm even going to say I'm not a devotee because I'm not doing this particular important element, though I'm, doing something else. As you're mentioning about the strengths, I was thinking, I often go, I don't have any strength. So I just would like to hear from you on that, if you can. Thank you.
I mean, I got your sentence. I didn't catch the, like Maharaj says, punchline. What's the specific question here?
How do we address the dissatisfaction that I'm not able to give or perform as all the 5 elements of bhakti?
Okay, if not 5, 1. 1 is better than none. But it's about gaining strength. See, when a person has, let's say, fever, the body is not functioning at its optimal level. Because when one, let's say in this case, we're talking in the context of a difficulty, difficulties can be very big for some, very challenging ones, some small, whatever. But so at such time, instead of nothing, there's something that gives us strength. That's important. And as a devotee, we can't say I don't have anything in bhakti that doesn't give me strength. Then there's a big question to ask. But whatever it is that we naturally can hold on to and feel the connection with Krishna, that's important. Rupa Goswami's instruction is yena kena, this way or that way. One should feel the connection with Krishna. It's not always for everyone this way. Whatever way. Whatever way you feel connected to Krishna, that's your strength giving activity. She wants to say something.
Usually in the beginning, it's always a particular 1 or 2 angas of bhakti that we are attracted to. Deeper appreciation of other angas of bhakti actually comes with little bit of maturity. And like he said, take just that one and go deeper and deeper. Because something about bhakti is like very often we think that we do something and in reciprocation Krishna gives us. But actually, it doesn't work like that. Krishna is independent and he will reveal when he wants to reveal. So the taste for any other angas of bhakti also comes when Krishna wants to reveal himself through that anga of bhakti. So what you need to focus more is not this activity, because the approach, correct me, is like it's an activity. But bhakti is not an activity. Bhakti is something that's relation from the heart. It's not an activity. It's something that's very natural to the soul. So when you mature more and more through that one particular anga that you have an attraction for, eventually Krishna will reveal, like through the holy name, how he says the rupa, guna, pastimes, everything is revealed. So you have to patiently wait for Krishna to reveal in order to you to taste the different angas of bhakti. It's not our doing. From our side, it's the sincerity and the enthusiasm. Like, I want to be in this relationship with Krishna. That is the key to it. It's not so much the activity. Did it answer your question?
Te anukampam susamekshamana. That's someone in the back had. Can you raise your hand somewhere way in the back? Parma Karuna Prabhu, I think. Subal Prabhu also, I didn't see her. He's Prabhu. Sorry.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It was a very, very wonderful class.
But coming from you, I take it as a special appreciation. Thank you.
I just wanted to appreciate so many things in your class. Your constant glorification of Guru Maharaj. And I learned so many things, how you weaved in the fact that, Anukampa is something that is not just what we want at a certain time, but what is right. And how we should go to a devotee if we don't have somebody, even one person whom we can fully share our heart without being judged, then there's a problem, or there's something we need to work on. So there are many other things. Right now the mic is in my hand and blanking out, but so many things I learned from this class. Very beautiful. One of the very beautiful classes I've heard in a while.
Thank you. Just Maharaj's little drops of grace that he has put on me. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that question that was asked, if you permit.
Please.
So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, towards the end of the Vaidhi Bhakti section, around verse 260 to 270, somewhere, there is this whole discussion of Eka Anga and Aneka Anga Bhakti. So, and there Sri Rupa Goswami composes this verse from Padyavali number 53, I think. It's a very famous verse that the various personalities who perfected themselves by simply following Eka Anga, one, Parikshit Maharaj for Shravana, Shukadev Goswami for Kirtana.
Right.
So many. And then there are Aneka Angas, like Ambarish Maharaj's example is given. So one or all perfection is guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Subal Prabhu, you wanted to say something, please?
Hare Krishna,
Hare
NityanandaPran
Krishna.
Prabhu. Thank you indeed. Very nice class. And in one sense, I appreciate it much too, because us to assist from Rupa Prabhu in one of the presentations that we're going to do, and the verse that the lila that I chose was the Brahma Vimohan lila. So, thinking in this particular verse, one of the things that I just wanted to comment in one sense and, highlight that you presented, this alignment of body, heart, and words is something that is quite elevated. In fact, when we see the definitions of the different angas, the anga of Atma Nivedana is when we fully surrender our body, mind, and words in the service of the Lord. And then also Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati defines bandhana of the 9 angas as when we connect with the Lord with body, mind, and words, then that is bandhana. So in one sense, one can understand that this alignment is necessary for one to enter fully into devotional service. And something that is quite an elevated position, to have that type of alignment of Atma Nivedana, or perfect alignment of things. And in one sense, Lord Brahma, he's a Suddha Bhakta, who is by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, he becomes bewildered. So to facilitate Lord Krishna's pastime, so he is taking, for him, that alignment is already there. It's just part of his adhikari. For us, rather, is then it goes into, sometimes not, like Guru Maharaj was explaining this morning. Very easily experiences when we chant. Sometimes we may be able to chant attentively. Sometimes, most of the time, we may have difficulty with that. So our mind, our heart is not aligned with the activity of hearing and chanting, or any of the other angas. So there's an anishtata, there's an unsteady, sometimes not. So, but the beautiful thing is, like in this prayer, Lord Brahma is not necessarily, is almost like laying a path that is accessible to anyone. because it's not about the qualification of you have to have this perfect alignment all the time. He didn't say that. He says you dedicate yourself to the process with your body, your heart, and your words to the glorification, to hear this, and to glorify the Lord to these narrations. So we do that. We do that maybe not in a nishta way, but we're doing that just like Guru Maharaj was answering, that we dedicate ourselves to the process of sadhana bhakti, and that's that process that Lord Brahma is laying out for ourselves. So I appreciate that very much as a meditation on these beautiful verses. So
Thank you, Prabhu. We'll stop here. Just a closing comment is, there is no promise that difficulties will go away. So I'm going to end it on a morbid note, okay? Nobody promised, Krishna doesn't promise, Lord Brahma doesn't promise that difficulties will go away. But what is promised is that difficulty that seems so big now seems to be water contained in the hoof print of a calf that one can easily cross over. Padam padam yat vipadam natesham bhavam buddhi bhava ambudhi. This ocean of material existence, vatsa padam, looks like water in the hoof print of a calf. Difficulties don't go. Our ability to surmount them becomes stronger. The word bhava means repeated birth and death. Also Lord Shiva, but because he brings repeated birth and death, or he's the personality that oversees it, he's also called bhava. But bhava means to exist, right? So birth and death. In that bhava, you add one it becomes bhava. Our job for life is to make bhava into bhava. Okay? And that little that you have to add, akaro Vishnu. Krishna says, among all the letters, I am akara. So you add Krishna, bhava becomes bhava. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Shatarupa, I'm sorry we took away your time.